So hello out there, Tullahoma. This is Lyle Russell, your Community Engagement Officer, with another episode of the Tullahoma at Work podcast. And today my guest is my good friend from down at Tullahoma Parks and Recreation, Parks Director J.P. Kraft. So J.P., welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to be here. So the first question I always ask, this is a big hard-hitting question right out of the gate. So you're at an event, you're over at somebody's house maybe, and y'all are getting ready to watch Oak Island, because I know you're a big fan of the show. Mm-hmm. And they get out the tub of Neapolitan ice cream. Which flavor are you going for?
Oh, I'm a big chocolate lover.
Man, I still swear I'm the only person that goes for the strawberry. So.
Yeah, Ashley would. Yeah.
So chocolate ice cream it is. So yeah, we try to make this fun, but there is a more serious question I like to open with. So if you can, tell the folks at home your Tullahoma story. How did you get here?
So prior to Tullahoma, I worked for Arnold Air Force Base at the golf course for about 10 years. I did a whole lot of jobs there, worked my way up, but finally I was the golf course superintendent. A position opened up in the Parks Department as Forestry Resource Technician, and I applied and got the job. So since 2005, I've worked for Tullahoma Parks and Recreation. Had a brief pause for about 18 months, but I came back in 2023.
Yeah, very good. So, but you don't live here in Tullahoma, though, right?
I don't. I actually live out in the county.
Okay, so yeah. We won't hold that against you.
My address is actually Manchester.
Yeah, we may hold that against you. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to do that. So you started out as Forestry Resource Technician, so that is the current position I have. It's morphed into, now the city arborist, but you've told me some stories about your first days in doing that. What's some of the fun things you remember from those early days when you got here?
So Dr. Smith, the orthodontist, he was the tree board chairman, and he would take me to a meals every quarter. We would meet prior to the tree board meeting. I enjoyed getting to know him, kind of getting to do some of the grant work, Tree City USA. I think when I first started, we were 8 years as Tree City USA.
Oh, yeah.
We're
28 now.
28. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it goes way back. So
It does. Some of the forestry conferences early in the day, they partnered with planning and landscaping architects, and I think they had that conference in Memphis, and it was really good. I know I got to go this year because you got that award.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So well, then I think that the current tree board chairman needs to take note and take me to a meals.
That's right, prior to the meeting.
That's right. So noted. So, and, obviously we've worked together for a long time. So some of the questions I'm going to ask you, I probably already know the answer to, but for the folks that may not know. So you started out, in this area working for Arnold Golf Course. That's also where I worked, but we worked there at different times. But so you did the outside portion where I did the inside. And so your degree is in agronomy, correct?
Plant and soil science. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how do you put that to use now in your parks role?
So part of the reason that I was interested in the forestry resource technician job was it would work with the ball fields and the sports turf. And so always been near and dear to my heart to make sure that we have really good ball fields. And so early in my career, I was able to do the forestry and kind of pepper in a little bit of the ball fields, the landscaping, the downtown landscaping, the larger pots we have downtown. That was through I can't remember how we first came across those, but we were able to get those down. But now we have really nice landscaping, downtown.
Oh, yeah. It looks really good. Mm-hmm. Looks really good.
So the plant and soil science background's really helped with that.
Yeah, and so I remember this from my parks days is that, everybody sees the surface. You see that nice green grass on the surface, but what I would tell people, and you probably would too, is that what happens in that first 12 inches of soil is the magic.
Absolutely. The root zone. And of course, we grow everything in native soil. It's not like a sand putting green, like a USGA spec. So when it rains, it's going to be wet. And when it dries out, it's going to be dry. So some fields have irrigation, some don't. But we were able to hire a new field technician. And I say new, he's worked here 3 times. He's had his first day last September. But Jamie is doing really good with the ball fields. We've got a really good crop of the ryegrass seed this year. So the soccer fields look great. The THS fields look great. I think he's done an excellent job.
Yeah, I've been watching the social media get a lot of good comments on the condition of the sports fields right now. They're looking really good.
Yeah, I'm really proud of Grider and Greenfield both. I don't think I'd put them up against any other cities, youth athletic fields right now.
Yeah, they look really good. The mowing pattern that Jamie did the other day on Grider that's major league quality.
That's kind of funny because, mowing patterns are typically not something he hones in on. He wants it to look. He has three things. He does safety, playability, and aesthetics. And he said, I rarely ever get to aesthetics. So for him to be doing a mowing pattern, he must think that safety and playability are already taken care of.
Yeah, yeah. So in working out at AEDC, coming from a golf course background, well, both of us did, those mowing patterns can make or break a golf course too. They look really good out there. Did you have to do a lot of that out there?
Yeah, I did. I did all kinds of stuff there. I was the cart boy at first, just picking up range balls, emptying the trash, and doing golf cart washing. And then I did work inside briefly. But yeah, on the ground side of things, we did it all. But the mowing pattern really, as takes care of kind of how you putt.
Right.
And it has to be really, meticulous about mowing patterns and downhill cup placement and stuff like that. Right.
And with ball fields, I learned, coming from a golf course background, I knew golf courses, but ball fields really aren't that much different.
They're not. You just have, different height of grass. And of course, there's a lot more compaction, I think, on the ball fields than on the golf course.
Yeah. And trying to keep the water off of them, that's always a challenge. Same with the golf course too. You have those rain out days, and as soon as it stops raining, within 3 minutes, everybody's coming, hey, can we go out and play? It's no different with soccer or baseball.
Oh, we have that all the time. It's rained 10 hours straight, and they're like, are we going to be able to practice today?
Right.
It's like, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's going to be a little damp out there. So speaking of damp, though, ball fields isn't the only thing that Parks and Rec does. We have 2 pools here in town, and I think by the time this episode airs, Splash Island will probably already be open or pretty close to it. How's it been going with Splash Island so far this year? What kind of preparations have you had to make?
So Splash Island, Margie, our retired maintenance supervisor, she nicknamed it Poseidon. And, that is a fitting name for the pool. There's always something wrong with the pool. I feel like if pools made money, there would be one on every corner. But we want to make sure that the 90-day summer, that we can get as many days as we can without rain, open for the citizens. Recently, we've gone through a renovation that's 10 years old, so the pump motors had to be replaced.
Right.
It was a good time to do that. They upsized them just a little bit so that we'd get a little more oomph when we backwash. When you have 500 of your closest friends swimming in your pool, you tend to collect a lot of dirt and debris.
Right.
And, of course, pollen, lotion, suntan lotion, and just regular lotion. Everything kind of gets in the filter.
Right.
And so that sand gets really gooey and gummy. And when you do a backwash, sometimes it all doesn't come out. So having that extra 5 horsepower on each of the motors, it has 2 main circulating pumps. And we took the time to have all that redone, replumbed. We didn't change the sand. We think the sand will have some life left. We may end up doing that in another year. But we also drained the pool, and we were able to inspect the plaster, clean it really good, patch it where we needed to, and refill with water. So this year it has really undergone kind of an undertaking to get it back to normal. We did think it had a leak, but it didn't have a leak. We actually had a hose bib leaking around the pool. So around the edge of the pool, we have 9 exterior hose bibs that we use to wash off, food, debris, anything that we need. And one of the hose bibs had started to leak, and we were trying to make it the pool, but luckily it wasn't the pool.
Yes, because a pool leak that's not a cheap fix.
It's not.
Or an easy fix for that matter.
So Splash Island actually has about 9 motors. That there's 2 on the Lazy River. There's 4 that run all the features, and then there's 2 that run all the circulation pumps, and then there's 1 it just blows air through the filter. So there are 9 big pump motors, and it's a chore just to keep all that running sometimes.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like what we were just talking about with ball fields. You see the nice green grass on the top, but that's that 12 inches below the surface that all the magic happens.
Yeah, and there's 4 main ingredients we use in the pool. So, of course, there's chlorine, there's acid to bring the pH down, There's calcium, which prevents the water from pulling the calcium out of the walls of the pool or the plaster.
Right.
And there's sodium bicarb. So all four of those, of course, have a cost. Chlorine was about $88 a bucket when I started in 2005. Now it's about $288 a bucket.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really expensive. Of course, you have the pumps. They run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not just hours of daylight. We have to constantly circulate the water. It's actually a code that all of that water circulates every 6 hours through the filter. You have your water bill because as patrons get out of the pool, they bring water with them.
Right.
Evaporation. So, there's a lot of cost associated to operating the pool.
Right. Right. And so, and you mentioned that you've got a 90-day summer, so you've got this short window that the pool is actually open, which I know, we've always wanted it to be open longer than that, but it's difficult because our lifeguard corps it's a young group and they're in school and all that good stuff. So
it is. It was such a large investment that the city made that we want to make sure that every day we can open, that we can't, that it is.
Right.
So this week, actually tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be open for Tullahoma City schools. And I think one of the Coffee County schools or Manchester's coming on Wednesday. Manchester's pool is actually it's down right now. They're having filter issues and they're replastering.
Right.
So, every so often, theirs is about 25 years old, and it's probably time. Like I say, ours is just 10 years old. But so every day that we can have kids in the pool, we want to, but we have to remember that most of the lifeguards are 16, 17-year-old kids that are in high school. We do have a percentage that are college-age kids, but for the most part, there are no adult lifeguards.
Right.
And as much as people say they want to be a lifeguard, there's just not many adults that want to do that.
Right. Not only that, that's having taken the lifeguard exam myself, it's physically strenuous. It's not easy to be that, especially when you get to, to my age or something like that,
Correct. You do have to be in fairly good shape. Of course, getting the dive brick off the bottom, swimming the laps. It's you're a first responder. You really are.
But one of the cool things, and I remember this from my days down there, is that, it's not just the Tullahoma pool that utilizes our training. There are some others, correct?
Correct. Yes, we train all of the Lynchburg lifeguards. I think we're training Fayetteville and Winchester. We train people from all over. We had a guy come in from somewhere out of state, I think, to take the class.
Oh, wow. Just to take that lifeguard class?
Most recently. Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to be working here. He's going back.
He will not.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know that was the lifeguard class is always a big thing. We have these large groups of kids coming in, and that's a tough job because, you're 16, 17 years old, and you're now charged with, a pool that can hold up to 500 people. If somebody gets into trouble at 16, 17 years old, there is a maturity level you have to be able to respond to that potential emergency.
And you're working with your peers. Sometimes you may have to get on your peers. There may be someone you're in high school with that's running on the pool deck, or maybe has done something they shouldn't do. And you're having to correct people your own age. So it's tough. But, we have a really good group of lifeguards. We have a really good group of head guards that have been there for some 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I think I saw a note come across that this will be their 6th year working for us at the pool. I think that's fantastic. And I think that shows a little bit too, working in the rec department, there is a career path in this.
There is 2 or 3 times lately in some interviews, not for lifeguard, we've had people bring up that, why are you interested in this position? Well, we heard it's a great place to work.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me happy that maybe we have built a great place to work.
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, when you have that many young people, you can almost, you hear teachers talk about what it's like having 30 kids in a classroom. Now imagine having 90 lifeguards in your pool. They're not all there at the same time, but you're dealing with 90 of those students that the teachers are talking about. 30 of them's a lot in a class. Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but so going back again now to another topic, athletics. The rec department has taken on a lot of athletic programs over the years. We have some that are internal to the department, that we've run, and then we've helped with some other private boards and forming some private boards to run some leagues. How's the athletics looking these days?
Oh, we're full. I tell you, it's something all the time. We do run 4 in-house. So we have junior NBA basketball, we have girls softball, we have adult basketball, and adult baseball. That's all that Tullahoma Parks run. But we
And y'all run those with staff internally.
We do run those internally, yes. Girls softball was run by a board previously, but they were going to go under, and so we stepped in. And 3 years ago, I think we're able to get them back on their feet, and they're doing well. So Cal Ripken baseball has taken over for Little League. And,
Right.
So Babe Ruth kind of went away. It was kind of absorbed by a finger of Cal Ripken, and that's where that 50-70 field comes into play. We have made the Wagner 3, the Joe Moon field. It's a 50-70 field. And actually, we can set up all 3 fields at Johnson Lane as a 50-70 field also, and we can do Wagner 1. So we do have kind of that Babe Ruth age group covered. But Tullahoma soccer, Tullahoma swim. I mean, there's all kinds of. If you want to play a sport in Tullahoma, you don't have to look very far.
No, you don't.
Frank Mullins football, Tullahoma elite football. So something for everybody.
Yeah, that's a pretty heavy list, and having worked some of those myself, I know how that goes. So being responsible for all the recreation that happens here in Tullahoma, at least from the city department side, what do you do to recreate after all that's over?
Well, recreation is quality of life. So, we have places you can go and meditate or take a walk and relax. And being outside is kind of what makes me relax. So I like to go out on the boat or go camping, go hiking. So, I kind of like doing it all, kayaking.
Right,
So
right.
A lot of times you'll find me at Woods Reservoir on my pontoon boat.
Yeah. I've been out there once or twice on that one. So
Yeah.
But now we got to get into a personal question though. So like I said earlier, I know you're a big fan of Oak Island, and one of the the time that we got in and cleaned the pool out, if you remember that, we found the handful of change that we found more money on Splash Island that they've ever found on Oak Island.
Absolutely. Still rings true.
Yeah.
Yes, there is more money in the gutters of Splash Island than there ever probably will be on Oak Island.
That joke will never get old. That was a great day. So
yeah, there was a section we took out the other day, and there was $1.75 in quarters just in a section about this long. So.
Yeah, and that just goes into the pool fund. Buy a little extra chlorine with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So kids, when you come to Splash Island, drop all your change in the bottom so we can go back and collect it. It helps us keep the pool running. We appreciate that. So
well, money isn't the only thing we find at Splash Island. Every Band-Aid, every Lee press-on nail, anything that was on your body that when you go in the pool, sometimes it ends up in the filter. So,
yeah.
Yeah, we have some good finds every now and then.
So you got to tell the story though about the eye.
Yeah. Yeah, we had just opened Splash. It couldn't have been. It had to have been the first year. And I had a kid run up to me, and he's like, Mister, have you seen my eye? And somebody had already brought me what looked like a prosthetic eye, and I had it in my hand. And I opened my hand, and I said, "Is this it?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's it." And he popped it right in and ran on his way.
It was a glass eye.
It was more plastic.
Okay, all right.
A friend of mine had a child that had a prosthetic eye, and I knew that as the kids grow that you have to get it sized multiple times. So it may have been time for him to get a new one, but he was really happy to get it back. But it was very identifiable because the pupil was the Alabama A.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot about that. That's right. That's right. So, yeah, Splash Island has some very interesting stories and just some of the odd things that happen there.
It does. It really does.
So what's another story from Splash Island that stands out to you? What's another one you can remember?
I've had people come up to me and reference the Tattoo Museum on Cedar Lane, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but it's Splash Island. So, yeah, that one kind of hit me by surprise.
Oh,
so
man.
I've heard somebody reference it that way.
Yeah, I would have never really thought of that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. All kinds of crazy things happen, though. I mean, we've had people sneak beer in. We've had to call the police because people were recording the lifeguards. I mean, we had a full-fledged, it looked like a movie crew. They had little GoPro cameras on sticks, and they were videoing everything, and it was not for good purposes.
Yeah. But at the same time, though, so I've seen this question pop up on Facebook about Splash Island. That there's a lot of people that think that you have to have kids to go there, or you can't just go as an adult. You can.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone recreates in their own way. I mean, some people bring their kids to the pool. Some ladies, I've seen them stay there literally all day and read books, or just lay out by the pool and get a tan. I mean, it splash-ons for everyone. I mean, it's unlike any other place, really. I mean,
yeah. So even for all the crazy that happens, it can be pretty nice and relaxing too.
It is. So Mondays and Tuesdays would be the days I would go because that's the slowest days. Mm-hmm. To me, about 300 people. If it gets over 300 people, the guest experience goes way down.
Yeah.
So, maybe 100, 200 people, that might be
kind of a quality over quantity concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, you think about it, if you have a pool at your house, and like you said before, 500 of your closest friends come over to go swimming, it's going to be a rough day in your backyard. So
Absolutely.
Running a public pool is not that much different. So sorry we had a small camera malfunction there, but we are back on now. So, but I was going to jump into another topic that I know we were going to talk about today too, the community centers. We've got 2 here in Tullahoma. We've got 2 really nice ones, actually. What do you want to tell us about those?
We do. We have 2 community centers. D.W. Wilson, of course, was built in 1975, so it's 50 years old this year. The weight room, the gym, we have fitness classes, and of course, the indoor pool are the big draws. Mm-hmm. We have fitness classes that we have daytime classes, we have evening classes, yoga. We used to have Zumba. We're hoping to kind of get some new classes going again. Pickleball, of course, has come along. So in addition to basketball, the gym is used for pickleball and other sports.
Right.
You can always, do a multitude of things inside.
Right. And now y'all have done some pretty significant renovations down there just across parks in general over about the last year. There's been some significant projects. What have you got going on with those?
Well, one of our biggest challenges is we have an aging infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And, every now and then you have to redo things. And so the HVAC at D.W. Wilson in the gym, it was varying degrees. It had been put together. The condensing units were maybe 1992s. The heat exchangers were maybe from 2008. And so we had to completely replace both 10-ton units in the gym, and that's made a world of difference. Mm-hmm. Actually, the air conditioning was using a plenum system that went under that old stage for the returns. Right. We moved the returns up a little bit off the floor so that it didn't get quite so much dust. When we sweep the gym, that dust would go right into the units, and that didn't really help the unit at all.
Right,
but, it's really helped the smell in there. I think the old musty under the stage area, it must have been going through the air conditioning system. But we've put about $62,000, I'd say, into HVAC there. Then we've put about $50,000 into new basketball goals. So the 2 goals that are in the gym are original to the building.
And this is at D.W. Wilson, right?
This is at D.W. Wilson, yeah. And they're Porter goals. We're going to replace them with some that lift out of the way. Mm-hmm. Pickleball always complains that the 2 courts on each end, the goal interferes with their game.
Sure.
And so the highly sought after center court is where they always want to play.
Right.
So we're
because those goals would hang right at 10 foot. So when you're batting them, back and forth, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
So we're going to replace those with retractable goals, but we're going to add 2 goals on each side for our junior NBA league. Mm-hmm. It's probably about 250 kids, 253, I think is what we had this past year. Mm-hmm. But they need the goals to lower to 8 feet, so that the smaller age group can play basketball also. So all 4 goals will lower to 8 feet, and it will allow us to have more versatility with practices. Currently, the 6 goals at CD Stamps, only 2 of them lower to 8 feet.
Right.
So in this project, the other 4 at CD Stamps will also be retrofitted with the manual lowering.
I didn't know that those were part of this project. That's great.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Having worked junior NBA before, that'll help with that quite a bit. That's exciting.
We had always thought maybe a 3rd gym would be an option, that would help alleviate some of the pressure from junior NBA, but I think this project, with adding a couple of extra goals, especially ones that will lower down to 8 feet, that will hold us over from having to, bear the expense of a second gym. I would love to have a double gym with a walking track around it at CD Stamps, but maybe we'll save that for the future.
Another future project. So. Yeah, and you've just finished building a big soccer complex out there next to the soccer fields. So.
Yeah, the pavilion that's at Johnson Lane Soccer, the restroom concessions pavilion, was a long time coming, probably about 15 years. Mm-hmm. Many people helped, get that project off the ground, and luckily we were able to finally land the plane.
Yeah.
I think it's really worked out well having the 6 individual restrooms rather
Right.
than the gang restrooms. I know parents with small children, they like to go in and kind of lock the
Right.
door and be in private with their kids rather than moms having to take sons or dads having to take daughters
Right.
into a,
Right.
I call it a gang restroom where they're all together.
Right. Right. Having the individuals gives you not only just the privacy, but it also, if there's ever a problem in one, like if a pipe's leaking or something malfunctions, you can close that one, but it doesn't close the whole bathroom.
Absolutely. And we were able to upgrade from porcelain to stainless steel. It's kind of like
Right.
a prison grade toilet. In the parks, a lot of people like to bring in rocks and destroy our porcelain, but they'll have to work at it out there.
Yeah. 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 Those bathrooms they're built pretty strong. If there was ever a tornado, that's the first place I would go.
Absolutely. and that will definitely be the flagship moving forward for when
Right,
we replace bathrooms because, like you said, it's a steel ball. There's no way that I don't think,
Right.
well, knock on wood, let's hope that no one can tear it up.
Yeah. Let's hope that doesn't happen. So just over the time of working in Parks and Rec, we've figured that you've worked up 20-ish years or so in that range. So what have you seen to be some of the biggest challenges in recreation as a whole, not just necessarily here in Tullahoma? What's a big challenge in the recreation world right now?
So, of course, money is always a challenge, and that's an easy one to say, funding. But, we have so much infrastructure, and that much of it was built in the 70s. And the ADA came along in 1992.
Right.
And so we have restrooms that aren't ADA compliant. We have walking trails that don't have the right pitch on the ramp. We have gravel parking lots that don't have the concrete pad for a handicap space. Just keeping up with infrastructure, making sure that things are painted, things are not leaking, but then, trying to keep up with codes and make things accessible for everyone.
Right.
I get hit up a lot for adult changing tables and things like that. And that's kind of fairly a new thing. But, I would just be happy if we could get real ADA stalls, real ADA grab bars in the right place in some of these park restrooms. And you have to remember, some of these were built like by the leagues. They weren't built by a contractor. They were built maybe by
Parents on a
Little League.
weekend or something like that. Yeah.
So, we're trying to kind of get everything to that next level. Maybe pave a parking lot where someone could have a place to unload a van, wheelchair, to get a wheelchair out. Skills Development is a large user of our parks too. They go to every pavilion.
Right.
They get their clients out in the public. They use the community centers also. And they tell me, it would be so much easier if we had, ADA access to all of these areas. So that's probably one of my biggest challenges is just keeping up with the ever-changing, landscape of accessibility.
And I think what's unique about that too is that if you think about it, that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the title of recreation. Of course, it's part of recreation, but someone will think, well, how come Parks doesn't do that? Well, Parks has so many areas that you have to focus on. It's difficult to zero in on the one user group that needs this one specific thing.
It's very true. But the ADA starts at the parking place. So when
Correct.
they get out of their car, when they come up your sidewalk, when they come in, the desk has to be a certain height. Every amenity has to be a certain height. I mean, it's a law, and we have to abide by it. And we put some money towards it each year, but there's so much infrastructure that we just haven't gotten to.
Right. So now, if you're getting ready to do another fairly large project coming up pretty soon, speaking of parking lots, D.W. Wilson, you getting ready to get some new paving, I hear?
It is. It's not going to be until August now, but it was going to be this week. But they weren't able to get us in before the pool opens, and because of the number of cars, I wasn't able to go with that this week.
Sure.
But, so we did add on to the parking lot in 2015, but this would replace the severely damaged parking lot, the L shape around the building that was there originally.
Right.
It was just resealed in 2015 or 2008 when we redid the building. But then in 2015, we weren't able to go ahead and repave. But that ties in exactly with ADA because the ADA ramp where the parking places are is going to really benefit from the repaving.
And I know just in the few meetings that you and I have been in together where we talk about these new building projects, that's always a big item at the forefront is to make sure that it is compliant with all of the current laws, not just ADA, but just in general. making sure that there's the right number of parking places, that you have the right exit doors, you have the right width, and the emergency bars, the panic bars, and that sort of thing. There's a lot that goes into recreation in a public facility that a lot of people just don't know about, or maybe just don't think about.
Absolutely. We have to make sure every fire door is in working order. We have to have the fire alarms checked, every year. It's something just basically all the time. We may have a pull station that's bad. And luckily, we have a really good contractor who keeps us, in compliance.
Right. Very good. Well, so another big thing that you're responsible for too, and I know recently you've had a staff member that got certified in this, was playgrounds. Imagination Station is probably, I would bet that's the most visited site in Tullahoma.
Absolutely.
And so now you've got a staffer who's a playground safety inspector, certified on that. So
it's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because he recognizes the problems, and sometimes we cannot afford to fix the problem, and so we have to remove certain pieces.
Right.
Imagination Station was a community-built project that probably was built in 1997. So in that time, it's made of wood. We've had a lot of rain, termites. There's just rot, and we have to remove certain items because it can't be replaced.
Right.
The new way that they replace playgrounds is with aluminum or plastic or steel.
And they do them in pods now, correct?
They do. The pirate ship that's there is a good example of a pod. So, yeah, we try to go through, and of course there's a lot of wasp nests. There's a lot of splinters. There's a lot of, maybe a nail that's backed out or a screw that's backed out. Most communities have done away with these. They're called a Leathers playground. Leathers and Associates from Ithaca, New York is who actually built that. Winchester had one. Murfreesboro had one. I mean, everybody had one in the day.
And I think you've told me before there's only 2 left, correct? Tullahoma has one.
We have one, and I can't remember if Murfreesboro tore theirs down. Old Fort Park used to have one.
So okay.
It may still be there, but I don't remember.
Okay. So, yeah, like you said, the potential for you think about going to a playground, splinters isn't normally one of the things you think of, but it's very possible at that one. It's hard about that because in our generation, when I just think back to when I was in that age, and the playgrounds that I used to play on, were just the stainless steel poles that were welded together on the swing sets, and we would jump off from 15, 20 foot. We'd get as high as we could to jump out. Yeah.
There was no fall zone material. It was right on top of grass or dirt or asphalt. Yeah.
Or mulch, which was I would argue that it was worse on mulch than it was just on grass.
So the fall zone material is really important. So the port in place was designed because of the head injury, but the mulch is actually the best thing to prevent bone breakage. The port in place will still break a wrist, break an ankle or something like that. The mulch actually gives, but the mulch is not very good on the head injuries.
Right.
So in the areas where we've used port in place, it's because maybe at Fraser McEwen where it floods, the mulch would wash away.
Right. So you go back to what you said earlier, talking about Jamie with how he looks at a ball field. In Parks and Rec, that's almost like you have to look at everything through the safety, playability, and aesthetics. So sometimes it may not be the prettiest.
Oh yeah.
But the goal is to make it safe, or as safe as you can. So.
We do. That certified playground safety inspector, he has to look for head catches. He has to look for places if they're wearing a hoodie with those 2 little tags on.
Right, yeah.
If that gets hung on something, I mean, he has very specific items that he has to look at on each playground.
Yeah, and that's, if there's any goal to all of these things that we're talking about, that's to, in my mind, is to let the public know that, we try to catch everything that we can, but there are certain things that may slip through, and not because we're not trying. I mean, we really are trying to make everything safe as we can. So
I've always kind of likened Parks and Rec to having 10 plates that you're spinning on a stick. You can only spend a little bit of time on each one.
Right.
But, we are very reactive. We're not very proactive just because there's 200 and something acres and there's 15 of us.
Right.
It's hard to be everywhere, but my guys do a good job. The people that work in the community center do a good job. If you tell them a problem, they'll get it to us. They'll put in a work order. We'll give it the attention that it deserves, but we do need to know about it first.
Well, that's a great segue. So if they are out in the park using something, they find something they think may have a potential issue, how do you want them to let you know that?
So the most common way people get a hold of us is just at 455-1121, which is the D.W. Wilson front desk, and that's kind of the the control center there. That person can put in a work order from there or take a phone message, connect you with someone. We also have recreation at tullahomatn.gov, and we also have a Facebook page, Tullahoma Parks.
Right.
So,
And so even though you would just encourage people to send you a Facebook message or just a direct email to recreation at tullahomatn.gov?
we get all three every day.
That's right. That's right. So if you had the chance to tell the 22,000 people-ish that live here in Tullahoma, if you had the chance to just tell them one thing about recreation that you just wish they all knew, what do you think that might be?
Well, I think it's important that we keep our parks and recreation, up well. Quality of life is something that people are looking for when they move to town. I mean, I know there's a lot of importance on the school system. I know it's important, your crime statistics or maybe a job. But, if you're looking for a way to stay fit or you're looking for a league for your child to play in or a pool to go to, maybe you need water therapy. We do have a water walking class that's very popular with people that have mobility issues. Recreation it touches everybody.
Right.
And, whether it's just coming to the park and walking around and looking at the creek or maybe taking a fitness class at the community center, it's very important that we have those options for current residents and for potential residents.
Right. I know we've talked about a lot of the challenges, but again, having worked at parks for several years myself, the volume of goodness that comes out of some of our big events, it's almost immeasurable. I know for me, one of my favorites is the 4th of July event. Well, it's the 3rd of July, the Independence Day celebration. We actually do it on the 3rd, not the 4th. So don't say I told you it was on the 4th. It's like getting together with 10,000 of your closest friends to go shoot fireworks off. But events like that, it always seemed to bring everything full circle. You go through these trials and tribulations. Oh, you've got to fix this. Oh, this broke. Oh, this poor kid got a splinter in his hand. But then you go out and do a big event like that where you have made so many people happy in one shot. And that's very difficult to do. But what are some of the big event memories that you have that have been really rewarding for you?
Well, I think that event is probably our biggest event that we've done well. And I think this will be 7 years. Could be 8 years.
Yes. 2015, I think, was the first year. Because
we're up to
2016.
Okay.
2016, because the year I started after it, but that was the first year that I think Parks had taken it over from the other Kiwanis club. So
I do think we've done a good job. It's basically a city event that's run through the Parks Department.
Right.
We do have the venue. We did put it out on Grider Stadium that first year, and so there is seating for about, I'd say, 8,000. There's 1,200 that sit in the stands. There's people all over the infield, the outfield, and they'll even sit in one side of the football stadium.
Right.
And so, I think that is a really good place to have the event. Then we have some really good music. Vinyl radio they've played every year, and so is Six Wire. Six Wire has played on the national stage multiple times. They were the house band for the NFL draft in Nashville. I think they've played for the Nashville Predators multiple times. They've been on TV shows. They're incredible, and it's kind of a home show for them. They've expressed, that they enjoy because their family gets to come to it, and maybe they get to come home for the 4th of July. But of course, the fireworks, pyro shows, they do a great job. I mean, it's definitely world-class fireworks. It's turnkey. We do not do it. It's all them, set to music. It's all timed and everything. And I can't say enough about pyro shows. They're from La Follette, Tennessee, but they do shows Bristol Motor Speedway, Nashville. They've done Washington, D.C. fireworks before.
Yeah.
And they're world-class.
Yeah. And we're lucky to, right here in Tullahoma, in our town, we get those musicians, those types of services, those types of vendors that can provide that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. But over the years, just seeing, all the people, the families that keep coming back, you see the same people kind of over and over. You kind of remember them, the vendors. We have about 12 vendors signed up for this year's food vendors. And people, remember the event. They remember how good it was, and they want to come back and be a part of it again.
I always thought it was neat, too, when you were talking about people who come back. You'll have an event at some point, and then several years later, this person will come in with their kids. You know,
Exactly.
they attended it as a kid, and now you've got the family coming back where that person was in your event. Now they're bringing their kids to be in your event.
Oh,
That was a neat feeling to have.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is Will Norris. He was in the Soapbox Derby.
Yeah,
And now his daughter is in the Soapbox Derby. So
right.
it's really, it's a neat feeling.
It is.
Kind of does make you feel old, though. A lot of the kids that were in the Soapbox Derby or in other programs we had are now lifeguards. And I'm like, wow.
Right, right. I noticed that, too. I know there's one in particular, her last year of doing Soapbox Derby, like 2 or 3 years later, she's applying to be a lifeguard. I'm like, I know that name from somewhere.
Absolutely.
Where do I know her from? So, but, and going back again, that's the career path. You start out coming as a patron, or you participate in a program, and then suddenly one day you find yourself hired as a lifeguard or a rec leader or something like that. And then one day you might be a programmer.
Well, then multiple times people have come back to Tullahoma and come to the community center, and they'll say, this was my first job, and looking back, it was my best job, And that's something, we hire probably 100, 16-year-olds every year. And they could do anything from grounds crew to rec leader to lifeguard and concessions. I mean, it's a great place to work, and it's first-time jobs. When we're interviewing them, it's like pulling teeth. It's like you've never run your own lemonade stand or had a yard sale, and they
worked at concession stand.
When they
at
say
Little
they don't
League,
have any experience,
Right.
and it's like you do have experience. Have you ever babysat for somebody? But most people, they do really well. They excel once they get in past the interview.
Right. Well, all right. Well, what else have you got to tell us about recreation? Anything good before we sign off here?
Well, there's always something going on. And if you'd like to go to tullahomaparks.com, that's our website. I think it is linked to our new website now.
It is?
It is, yes. Mm-hmm. For years, it just went to Civic Rec, where you would go in and sign up for your account. But it will have lots of content in there as soon as you and I get together.
That's right. That's right. We're doing a refresh of all that. So,
but if anybody wants to tour the community center or just have a question about the parks, please let us know. Either 455-1121 or recreation@tullahomatn.gov.
Yep. And then also you can go to www.tullahomatn.gov, and in the department section, you just click on Parks and Rec, and all of that content that we're about to upload on there will tell you a lot about what we just talked about here. And, there are times in my new position, I miss it a lot. I love my new job, but the nostalgia brings me back to looking at things through a Parks and Rec lens sometimes. And, it's a great experience.
Well, there's a little Parks and Rec in everything the city does. We help with many events, and so I'm sure we'll be helping you in the future.
Oh, yeah. Oh, count on it. Most definitely.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And so that's going to conclude our episode today. We're going to do the Bob Barker sign off that if you have pets at home, please make sure you spay and neuter them, and to make sure that we don't increase the unwanted pet population. Have a great rest of your day, Tullahoma. Thanks for watching. JP, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time on the Tullahoma at Work podcast.